And so I played a lot this past week. I mean, it was the only thing I was playing, and pretty much anytime I got a spare moment, I was playing it, whether I was doing it on the Steam Deck or when I had the ability, I'd be playing on my PC. And first, I do want to note, as of yesterday, I beat the campaign, so that's the majority of the game. I did all but maybe a few like collectibles before, or at least all but a few collectibles that I had to get. So with all the side content, I did just about all of the stuff that I could do before finishing the campaign, because there's some things that don't unlock until after you finish the story. The optional bosses that I talked about previously, the Berserkers. So I beat all of them except for the last two before I finished the story, because one of them does not unlock until you finish the story. Or rather, you can't access the location where that one becomes available. And then the king doesn't show up until after you've beaten all the rest of them. So I fought I finished the game, the campaign on Wednesday, or not Wednesday, Monday. Yeah, on Monday. And then Tuesday, maybe I'm wrong. No, I think I might have actually finished. I think I finished the campaign on Tuesday, and then I don't know. It doesn't really matter. The point is that I finished the campaign. I beat the second to last Berserker. That is the one that comes right before the king, and then I fought the king today and beat him. Now I want to talk a little bit about the Berserkers, because these were some interesting challenges. So, of course, I shared a bunch about the ones yesterday. In the case of the other ones that I fought since then, so there is a set of 3 of them that you can fight, which I didn't know until I came to that encounter, that there would be 3 of them all at once. It gets pretty hectic. Now, the one thing is that, what's nice is that 2 of them, they share a health pool. So if you attack one, it damages both of them at the same time. But you still have 3 of them attacking you all at once. And it can be really difficult, especially with the camera angle and everything, to keep track of all of them. So I fought this trio over and over and over. I was about a level underneath them. And I thought, okay, I could do this. I kept trying. There'd be times I'd get close. I'd, manage to take down one of them, or the pair of 2. And then I would die. And it just I can't even tell you how many times I attempted this. It was ridiculous how many times I attempted this, being one level lower than them. And the levels are entirely based on your gear. So your armor and your weapons. And I was level 6, they're level 7. So then I attempt this fight many times. I finally decided to take a break from fighting the Berserkers for a bit. And in doing so, I went off and did some additional side stuff, did some additional story stuff, took care of some of the trials that I needed to take care of, just getting side stuff done in general so I could get my weapons leveled up. So I got 2 out of 3 of my weapons leveled up. And because the third one, you have to actually beat the Berserker trio in order to get your weapons leveled up, or to get your last weapon to max level. So when I went into the fight this time, I was level 8 for my gear instead of level 6, which is what I was previously. So I went into this fight. Now, I will say I did fail the first time I went back in at this, but just barely. Literally, I was just wiping the floor with them. And then I got down to the boss had a single sliver of health left, and I died. And there are resurrection stones in this game, so you get 1 resurrection stone that you can have at any given time. And so I got revived pretty late in the fight. Unfortunately, I didn't quite take out the boss, and so they just had that sliver of health. It would have been 1, maybe 2 hits at the most it would have taken to take them out. But I died. So I went back in the second time, fight went faster, and I cleared it without dying at all. And it's just like massive difference. And the gameplay footage that's being shown here is, as long as it didn't like glitch out on the Streamlabs side of things, because earlier it seemed like it was playing the wrong clip, then it will be the fight with just the winning version of this battle. But before, they were a level above me, and it was just a little bit too much. Did some slightly different things with my gear and everything when I went back to it. Plus, of course, being having higher level gear, and it was just so much easier, and definitely taught me that when it comes to these fights, it does not hurt to wait. Instead of being so prideful that you waste a bunch of time fighting an enemy over and over, hoping to beat them, especially when you're like me and you're not very skilled at the game, it's better to just level up your gear and come back later. So, yeah, this fight is just, it's definitely one of those very tricky fights, but I was able to take out the twins that that share the health pool first, and then I took out the main boss of the three. So it's kind of interesting though, because when I had originally beat my head against a wall repeatedly trying to complete this fight at a lower level, I had talked to some guys in the Married to the Games Discord, and they were telling me this was the hardest fight in the game as far as they were concerned. And so I figured, okay, that's probably what it's going to be. It's going to be the hardest fight. That's what it's been for me so far. Because really, the only thing that made this as difficult as it was just the fact that there was 3 of them, even if 2 of them shared a health pool. But like, I had fewer issues with this fight than I did with the with what you call it, or rather, let me rephrase that. I had more issues with this fight than I did with the group of 2 of them that was technically supposed to be harder because they were higher level. And the team of 2 of them, it was just easier because there was only 2 of them. And that one, the only reason why it took me as long as it did was mostly because one of the 2 enemies uses this unblockable attack that you can, if you can get close enough to him, you can use an attack that you use this shield thing that like breaks the attack that stops them from using it. But if he uses it and you're too far away to get to him to stop him from using it, then he just completely wipes. I mean, it does a ton of damage. And so that's the only reason I had so much trouble with that particular fight. I mean, that one I was able to beat before I got this one done. But yeah, this one just ended up being an interesting challenge. Either way, yeah, it was very memorable, and definitely one that I know now. If I eventually go back and do New Game Plus, I will make sure that I come back at the right time. I don't think that they would be necessarily any higher level than normal. I think they just have more health. So theoretically, it shouldn't be as hard. And, at that point, I should easily be able to... I mean, not only will I be probably level 9 gear, I might even have level 10 gear, depending on what I get from Valhalla. So, I mean, the Valhalla stuff is completely separate. It's its own separate, like, roguelike mode. But you can carry over stuff that you obtain in Valhalla to use in the main game. Like, one of the things that's cool is that you can, for your rage attack, which is like where he like gets super mad and super strong and just like charges an enemy. It's, you press R and F, or the right stick and left stick and all that. It switches so that he uses the Blade of Zeus, which is, since the original games were in Greek mythology, it's supposed to be like super duper powerful, but of course you can't use it all the time. You can only use it when you have your rage meter full. But anyway, I haven't looked super hard into everything with Valhalla, so I basically just have essentially the gist of how it works, and I'm definitely planning to do it after I am completely done with this game. So that being said, I am going to talk a bit about the last Berserker fight. Now, the second to last one, which I mentioned earlier, that one I think I recorded, but I didn't include in the gameplay here. Mostly just because it was not a particularly difficult fight. It only took me a few tries to get through it. Partially because, number one, even though it was one of the two post-game Berserker fights, it was also a single enemy, and it basically was just using a lot of the same attacks that all the previous Berserkers had. Like, they kind of build on each other, like in terms of the types of attacks they have. Like, you'll have the first enemy that has all the specific attacks, and then you'll have another enemy that has like a different element of those same attacks, and then as you get further along, they'll start you'll see repeated types of attacks, but of course they'll be stronger and have more health and everything. So anyway, so that one, all I'm going to say is that it wasn't particularly hard. It only took me a few tries to beat. But the King was where it was one of the more interesting ones. Now, this one definitely was nowhere near as many tries as the trio. Definitely nowhere near that much. I think I attempted it. I tried twice during lunch today, and I got decently far. I got him down like 3/4 of the way. But there's like one particular attack that he uses that really all the most of the Berserkers have used. I've never been good at avoiding it. But because of the fact that he would use it often enough to where I would just get hit by it and it would keep damaging me, it was the one major thing that kept me from being able to successfully dodge it or parry it. Basically, it's just the area of effect for the attack that he uses. It's like an elemental explosion in front of him, and it like covers his entire front area, so it like goes off to his sides and entirely in front of him. So the only way to avoid it is either if you dodge backwards, far enough backwards to where it can't hit you, or if you can get around behind him. And the only way to really get around behind him is either if you have time slowed to where you can actually move all the way around him, or if you just happen to already be far enough away. So really the best bet is either if you can dodge backwards, or learn how to parry it. I had difficulty figuring out the parry timing. I just hadn't figured it out yet. And so I ended up just looking up, okay, how do I parry all this guy's attacks? Because I knew that this was not exclusive to him. I'd seen this particular attack many times with the other Berserkers. It just never hit quite as hard, and of course none of them had as much health as he does. So it definitely made it more challenging. And so I found out how to do it, and I would say I still can't perfectly parry that type of attack, but I was able to parry it more often than not, which was exceedingly helpful, as well as making a couple other changes to my gear and my runic attacks and that sort of thing. So let's see here. I did twice during lunch today. Then I attempted a couple times on Steam Deck, just kind of testing out some new things with the build, thinking, well, it's not impossible that I could beat him here, even though it was highly unlikely because of the reduced frame rate, which meant less responsiveness and the controls and everything else. But it ended up, let me back up. After attempting a few times on Steam Deck and not having any success, I just said, okay, I'm just going to stop. I'm done with my break. I will come back to this, try again after work. So I went back in after work, and the first time I attempted with being able to properly parry that attack, at least more often than not, I beat him. And I will say that compared with what's her face? Sigrun, who's the Valkyrie Queen in God of War 2018. This guy was not that difficult. Now, I think I would probably be able to do a lot better on Sigrun now, especially now that I actually use my shield to block and not just try to parry. But even that being said, he was hard, but the hardest thing about him was really more than anything, apart from, having to learn how to parry that elemental explosion, the hardest thing about fighting this guy was just the amount of health he had. And the fact is, even with being... Actually, I'm not even sure if my character's at level 8 or level 9. If he was at level 9, I probably would have had an easier time if my character's at level 9. I think my character's still just around level 8, even with all my weapons maxed out. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I might be level 9. Anyway, point is that he was tough, but nowhere near as tough as some of the other tough bosses I fought, and I did not have as much difficulty with him as I had with many of the other Berserkers, mostly because I had learned the patterns well enough, and it's like he doesn't really do anything new that the other Berserkers don't do, so it was just easier. It was easier in general being able to know how to avoid a lot of his attacks and at least some of the time parry them, even though I definitely didn't do as well as, people who are actually good at the game. But either way, it was a good fight. I'm glad I was able to beat him, get my achievement for that. And at this point, the only thing I have left for achievements is I have one boss, which is the Valkyrie Queen, the new Valkyrie Queen, which I've heard is the hardest fight in the game, but, I'll see how it ends up being. Like, I've heard kind of mixed things. Some people have said that it's harder than the Valkyrie Queen in 2018. Others have said it's easier than the Valkyrie Queen in 2018. And the only way I'll find out is to attempt it for myself and see what happens. But I just know that it's going to be satisfying when I'm able to do it one way or another. And I don't mind if it takes me a bunch of tries, because I would be extremely shocked if I was able to do it in anything less than, like 10 tries. I think realistically, if I had fought the Berserker King in a different circumstance, like specifically if I had not fought him on the Steam Deck and had just done the 2 attempts during lunch and then looked up the parry strategy, I potentially could have beaten him in 3 tries. And yeah, I don't know. It was a satisfying fight, though. I mean, I'm glad I got through it. All that build up. Oh, and it looks like my character level is level 8, like at the very top of level 8. And I think it was that I probably didn't. Something wasn't. Oh yeah, that's right. I think one of the gear pieces for my shield was not fully upgraded because I didn't have the materials I needed. So that would be why. Yep. So I was a lower level than him. If I was level 9, I probably could have done a lot more damage at a time. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as that goes. I mean, that's the only other game I played, and I have 4 or 5 achievements left. Let me look at Steam. I think it's just 4 is what I have left, because the last achievement that I get is just for getting all the other achievements. So, and then the rest of the achievements that are on the game are specifically for Valhalla. So yeah, I think that's everything I have to say on that front.
Okay, and just for clarification, Valhalla mode is the free sort of expansion that was added. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And you said it's like a roguelike, sort of like a roguelike. So is it like have a definitive ending, or is it just like endless?
No, it has a definitive ending. I think it takes more after Hades than other roguelikes, and it has an actual story to it. I think the main focus, and this doesn't spoil anything, is just mostly Kratos kind of like overcoming his past demons regarding, the man he was in, when he was in Greece, or going through all the Greek mythology stuff and killing all of those gods and everything else, and one of those gods being his father, as well as just a bunch of other things like that. looking at who he was compared to who he has been, because it's been thousands of years for him, and just, looking back at that, and he's struggled with it for many years, and he's learned to accept a lot of it and be able to move on, especially with having remarried and had a son, and now his son is in his teens, and he's had a chance to bond with his son during the last game, and help him grow into a man who's able to take care of himself and everything else, and so all that good stuff.
Okay. And I know you mentioned the Berserker King being easier than you remember than the Valkyrie Queen. Would you say overall, though, the Berserkers were easier than the Valkyries, or would you say...
I'd say it's pretty similar. Without going back and fighting the Valkyries again, it would be hard to say with certainty whether any of them would... whether I would consider them on equal footing, because I feel like the Valkyries were such a memorable thing because of how much more difficult they were than all the other enemies in the game. And with the Berserkers, yes, they're way more difficult than the majority of the enemies in the game. In fact, I don't think, there's not a single story boss that even comes close to comparing to the Berserkers in this game. But I also feel like as I got further along with the Berserkers, with most of their mechanics being similar enough to where I learned how to avoid certain attacks, that definitely made them feel like they were less challenging in a sense. I mean, like I said, without going back and facing the Valkyries of 2018, it's really hard for me to say with any certainty which one's harder. And of course, if I did go back and face the Valkyries, I would be doing it in New Game Plus, because I have no reason to restart from scratch when I have the New Game Plus option. It's like, why would I do that? That's stupid. It's pointless. But yeah. Okay. The only thing I just want to say real quick, the only thing that I do want to say that is an annoyance, and I think that Sony Santa Monica is looking into it, is that for some reason the trophies do not pop on the PlayStation side unless you are playing on PC and not on Steam Deck. If you play on Steam Deck, anything you earn on Steam Deck, the corresponding trophy does not pop at all, even when you connect on PC. And I think it's just a bug. I know it wasn't intentional, because they thought that they had fixed it, but it seems like the issue is still present because I got probably about half of the trophies that I have on Steam Deck, and I checked earlier today, and they still hadn't popped on PlayStation. So I could technically have the Platinum Trophy without actually having the rest of the trophies because of this bug.
Well, is it really a bug, though? Because I thought that it just wasn't going to work at all because the trophy system required Windows.
Well, no. I mean, what I'm saying is that I think that the way it's supposed to be is that the trophies can still pop. It's just that you can't. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them to make it Steam Deck compatible if they make it impossible to earn the trophies separately. Now, if I wasn't able to connect on PC, then yeah, I could totally understand from that standpoint. But the fact that I can connect my save on PC, it seems like the trophy should pop, even if it's like, oh, okay, I popped this trophy and then this, these previous trophies pop now because a new trophy popped. But yeah, if not, then I guess it'll be that I will probably have the Platinum Trophy and still be missing a bunch of the earlier trophies because of this. Which is like, that doesn't make any sense, but it's like, well, you can look at my Steam achievements. You see that I earned all these trophies. It's like, I did the work. I beat all these bosses and went through all these challenges. Right now, the only thing I have left, I have one achievement that's tied to, well, actually two achievements that are specifically tied to beating the Valkyrie Queen, because one of them is beating the Queen herself, and the other being a certain item drop that only comes after you beat her. That helps complete a trophy that's collecting all of like these sword hilts and relics that you get in the game. And then the other is finding the remaining artifacts, which there's just a handful that I'm missing. And then, it's here. Valkyrie Queen, relics, artifacts. There's one other one that I can't remember off the top of my head. Because I know that there's 4 of them. 4 of them I have left. Plus, I mean, then I get the platinum when I get those 4. So anyway, it doesn't really matter. Oh, it's some side quest where I need to like find a different flower from every realm, and I don't know what it ultimately nets me in terms of rewards, but it's a side quest. So I think it brings more story stuff. So yeah, that's that.
Okay, nice. Yeah, definitely glad that you enjoyed your playthrough of this, got through all of the Berserkers. Hopefully the new Valkyrie Queen won't give you too much of a hard time, but hey, I know that you should be close if you're not already on the threshold of fully maxing out your levels, so hopefully that will make things easier in that regard then.
Yeah, I'll have to look into see what I need or where I can get those specific materials I need in order to max out my level, because I think that it might just be one of the side quests that opened up after I finished the campaign that I need in order to do it, and I've only done like one of the 10 things. It's just like this particular group of enemies that popped up in 10 different places in the different realms. So yeah, one thing I will say, just one last thing, at least I think it's one last thing. I'm not going to say what exactly happened in the story, but there was 2 big story things that happened that unfortunately I had spoiled for me by YouTube. And I mean, it's like I didn't know what one of them. I was like, okay, I don't know how this happens exactly, but now I know that it happens. And then the other thing was like, oh, okay, and it's just titles of YouTube videos, and it's like I didn't want to see this yet. I wanted to find out for myself. It's cooler when you find out these twists. And the fact of the matter is, the writing in this game is great. Like, it is legitimately great. And I know that there's the haters about Sweet Baby, and it's like, well, okay, I'm a hater of Sweet Baby too, but people blowing out of proportion that you happen to have a couple black characters in Norse mythology. Yes, it doesn't make sense. Yes, it's tokenism, and I don't like tokenism any more than anyone else. But to completely dismiss the game because of the tokenism, I think that's stupid. And it's fine if you don't like the gameplay. By all means, you don't have to play it. No, nobody's required to play it. I'm not even going to say, oh, you're a bad person or you're a racist because you don't play this game because of these 2 black characters. It's like, I guess technically there's 3 black characters, at least that you see on screen. Point being, like, I think that there are legitimate criticisms of the game, but I personally loved the game. I thought the story was expertly written. It was extremely well done. The performances were excellent. The voice acting was excellent. Just, while I can definitely understand also some of like the sections where you play as Atreus, for example, aren't as good as the parts where you're playing as Kratos. It's nowhere near like the level of the Mary Jane and Miles sections in Spider-Man, where it was just like, oh, this is so slow. I hate doing this, and it's terrible. Of course, saying when you play as Miles and Miles Morales, it's a whole different story because it's fantastic. But no, I mean, like this one, yes, you don't have as much action, but he still has his own combat, and he feels pretty good in combat. There's not a whole lot of sections like this. All of them are pretty brief, but it was essential to tell the story because of the direction that the story took, and I felt like it was important. And they also set up like the potential, well, not just the potential, but the likelihood of where the next game would be set. Because the Norse saga is done. Ragnarok was the end of the Norse saga. And I thought it was really well set up, and it was a good evolution of Kratos' character. Not to where it felt like they were just erasing what happened to it previously, more like that they were simply taking the realities of what he did and everything. And it's not like he's like, oh, I was toxically masculine for doing these things, or, you know, some other stupidity like that. It's more like he recognized that the revenge and everything that he went through, it didn't bring him the peace he was looking for. It didn't get rid of the nightmares and everything else that he had to deal with as a result of being tricked into killing his wife and daughter, you know, back in the very first game. And just him being able to he left his homeland to come to this area to try to get away from his past, and he's ultimately come to a point where he realized he can't escape his past. It will always be with him, and he has to move on. And he didn't want his son to be like him. And not spoiling anything whatsoever, but, you know, he didn't want his son to make the same mistakes that he did. And as a father, I 100% understand that and identify it with it. And that's one of the reasons why that first game I identified so heavily with. Now, it wasn't the reason I loved the game. I loved that about the game, but I loved the game because it is a 3D Metroidvania, and the combat is fantastic. It didn't have any of the stuff in that the previous God of War games had, like in terms of the nudity and all that other stuff that I wanted to stay away from. And it was just like, I like that, even though it's definitely in many ways slower pace, because it's not as much of a combo heavy thing, even though there's definitely lots of combos in the game and you can do a lot with it. It's different from the old games in terms of how it plays. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Not saying that people who feel that way are wrong, because I don't think they're wrong. I just don't agree with them. It's like, you know, I loved it. I loved 2018. I loved Ragnarok. I am happily going to get the platinum on it. Assuming Valhalla doesn't give me any major frustrations with it, I don't expect it to be too bad. That I'm planning to get all the achievements in that as well. And I'm super glad that I finally got around to finishing this game. So I still think it's stupid that PSN is required for it, and that they're not selling it in 100 and whatever countries. That's stupid, but I enjoyed the game. I am so glad that I finally got a chance to play all the way through it. And even though the Steam Deck performance leaves a lot to be desired, it was still technically playable on the Steam Deck, and on the PC itself, the performance and the visuals are just glorious. So good. So, yeah. I've talked a lot about this. I'll definitely include this segment because it's, you know, more or less the end of my journey with Ragnarok. I would say probably by the time next week rolls around, well, I'll definitely be done with all of the base game stuff, and I'll probably be in Valhalla. And when I'm done with Valhalla, I haven't fully decided what I'm doing